Welcome to the HFY Codex Tale. If you like our videos, keep supporting and subscribe to our channel. The arrow that should have killed him. The arena was silent. Thousands of alien eyes watched from tall stone towers. Warriors lined the walls. Priests held their staffs high. And in the center of the great circle stood one human. David. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't famous. He had no armor, no weapons, just a simple jacket, dusty boots, and calm eyes. Across from him stood the princess of Vyrla, Kayla. Tall, strong, silver skin marked with glowing blue lines. Her black hair was braided tight. She wore a golden chest plate, and in her hand was the sacred arrow. It shimmered with ancient power. This was not just any weapon. The sacred arrow was part of her people's oldest law, a symbol of honor, of death, of binding fate. The challenge had been clear. If he survives the arrow, he is her equal. It was a tradition older than their stars, but no one had ever survived. No one had ever caught the arrow, because no one was ever supposed to. Kayla raised her arm slowly, the arrow drawn back. Her golden bow hummed with energy. David didn't flinch. He didn't even raise a hand. She narrowed her eyes. "You don't look scared." "I'm not," David replied. "Should I be?" She pulled the string. Time seemed to stop. The crowd held its breath. The arrow flew. Fast, too fast to see. It cut through the air like lightning, heading straight for David's heart. Then he moved. One hand rose. Snap. He caught it. Midair. Right in front of his chest. The sound echoed across the arena. The energy around the arrow crackled and faded in his hand. The crowd gasped. The priests dropped their staffs. Kayla froze. It was not possible. "No one has ever caught it," she whispered. David looked at the arrow in his palm. "Guess there's a first time for everything." He wasn't smiling, he didn't celebrate, he only looked at her, calm, steady, respectful. The silence broke when the chief priest stepped forward and raised both arms. "By the sacred laws of Vyrla," he declared, "he is now her equal." Kayla's eyes widened. "No," she said, he's not one of us." The priest turned to her. He caught the sacred arrow, the bond has begun. Kayla stepped back, shocked. "You mean he's my mate now?" The priest nodded slowly. "It is law, you must stand beside the one who caught your arrow. He is now bound to your heart, and you to his." David blinked. "Wait, hold on, mate, as in married." Kayla stared at him, fury in her eyes. "You tricked me." "I didn't even know what this test meant," David said. "They told me it was a show of skill." "You should have died," she shouted. "And yet here I am." She stepped forward fast, eyes glowing. The arrow was still in his hand. She grabbed it, but didn't pull it away. The arrow didn't burn him. Another sign of the bond. Kayla turned to the elders. "Break it. I do not accept this human." The high elder stepped forward. He was old, his face marked with time and power. "The law cannot be broken, princess," he said. "The bond is written in blood and history." "Then change the law," she shouted. "It cannot be changed." David stepped back slowly. He was now surrounded by guards, priests, and a furious alien princess who was suddenly his bride. "This has to be a mistake," he said. "I didn't come here to steal a queen. I came here to learn about your culture." Kayla looked at him. For the first time she saw it, he really didn't know. He wasn't trying to mock her or cheat her. He was just human, brave, honest, maybe even foolish. But still he caught the arrow. And now, by her people's most sacred rule, he belonged to her. And worse, she belonged to him. Kayla turned her back and walked away without another word. The crowd began to chant his name, but David didn't feel proud. He had won something he never asked for. And something told him. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. She refused to obey the bond, but the law said otherwise. Kayla smashed her fist into the stone wall. The ancient chamber shook from the blow. Cracks spread across the sacred carvings, but no one stopped her. Not even the guards. They knew better than to anger a warrior princess. Inside, her blood burned. "This can't be real," she growled. "They want me to mate with a human." Across the hall, David sat on a smooth stone bench, guarded but untouched. He didn't speak. He watched her with careful eyes, not afraid, but not smug either. "I don't want this," Kayla said, turning to him. "You hear me, human? I will never accept this bond." David stood slowly. "Then we're in the same situation." Kayla blinked. "What?" "I didn't ask for this either," David said. "I thought I was joining a peace ceremony, not a wedding." Kayla narrowed her eyes. "You caught the arrow." "I didn't know what it meant." She turned away again, fists clenched. The High Elder entered the chamber, walking with slow, echoing steps. The moment he spoke, the room went cold. "The bond is sealed. Sacred tradition cannot be broken. If you refuse the bond, your titles will be removed." Kayla spun around. "You would take my crown, my birthright." The Elder nodded. "We do not make the rules, Princess. We follow them. The arrow chose him. The law is clear." David stepped forward. "Can't we just cancel this? Say it was a mistake?" The Elder looked at him with sadness. "In our culture, a sacred arrow can only be stopped by the one it seeks. That's you. You stopped it. That means your souls touched. The bond formed instantly." Kayla laughed bitterly. "Souls touched. He's not even from our planet." "It does not matter," the Elder said. Kayla walked up to David, nose almost touching his. "You want me to obey this law, to be your mate, your bride?" David looked into her eyes. "No, I want you to be free." That answer stunned her more than any order could have. The Elder cleared his throat. "Princess, if you do not attend the binding ceremony by moonrise, the punishment is exile." Kayla turned to him. "So I must choose, live with him or be cast out forever." The Elder nodded once. "Yes." That night in her private room, Kayla sat in silence. Her armor lay untouched. Her weapons hung on the wall, but she felt more helpless than she ever had on a battlefield. She remembered her mother's words. The bond chooses the soul, not the blood. Still a human. Why him? Why now? Outside in the cold hallway, David paced. He was angry too, but not at Kayla. At the situation. At the pressure. At the law that forced two strangers together because of an old rule no one dared to question. Then he saw something, movement in the shadows. A soldier, no, not a guard, someone else, a spy. David followed. He turned the corner and saw a blade. A real one, raised behind Kayla's back. Without thinking, David shouted and tackled her to the ground. Clang, the blade struck stone where her neck had been. Kayla rolled, pulled a dagger from her boot, and threw it with lightning speed. The attacker dropped. Kayla sat up, panting. What just happened? David stood, holding his arm, bleeding. "I think someone didn't want this bond to happen." Guards came running. They dragged the attacker's body away. One guard looked at David and whispered, "Some fear the bond could change everything. You caught the arrow, but now others want you dead." Later that night, Kayla stood beside David in the binding hall. She wore a silver dress of tradition, but her face was stone. David looked at her gently. "You still don't want this?" "No," she said, "but I don't want war either." He nodded. "Then let's fake it, just for now, until we find a way out." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "You would do that, pretend to bond just to protect my people." "I'd do it," David said, "to protect you." She looked at him long and hard, then whispered, "You're not like other males." And as the priest began the ceremony, the two stood together, not as lovers, not as enemies, but as two strangers tied by law, danger, and a strange feeling growing between them. A feeling that neither one understood yet. But soon they would. She tried to escape, but the bond pulled her back to him. Kayla waited until the guards changed shifts. She moved like smoke through the shadows, fast, silent, trained. The palace walls meant nothing to a warrior like her. She had escaped worse places, harsher prisons, but this time she wasn't running from a cell. She was running from a bond. The stars above Viola shone cold and distant as Kayla climbed out through the outer wall and vanished into the wildlands. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from rage. "I will not be bound to him," she whispered into the wind. "Not to a human." Meanwhile, back at the palace, David was asleep, but something in his chest woke him. A sharp pull, like a string inside his heart, had gone tight. He sat up, gasping. He looked around. Kayla's room was empty. Guards rushed through the hallway, shouting echoed across the halls. "She's gone," someone yelled. "The princess has escaped." David's blood ran cold. He didn't know why, but something inside him ached, as if a part of him was being ripped away. Far away, Kayla ran through the glowing forest, her boots sinking into soft moss. Strange birds flew above her. The sky shimmered with twin moons. She should have felt free, but instead, her body felt heavy. Her skin itched, her chest burned, her legs started to weaken. "What is happening?" she gasped. She fell to her knees. Her fingers trembled. Her eyes glowed bright blue, the color of the bond reacting. She gritted her teeth. "No, I will not be controlled." But it wasn't control. It was pain, deep pain, like her soul was being pulled backward. Then memories flashed in her mind. David's voice. "I want you to be free. I didn't ask for this either. I'd do it to protect you." She gasped. "No," she whispered, "don't tell me." Back at the palace, David grabbed a hoverbike and sped into the wildlands. "Where are you?" he whispered. "I can feel you." He followed the ache in his chest like a compass. It wasn't logical, but something inside him just knew. He found her collapsed beside a glowing tree. Kayla was barely breathing. Her skin flickered with strange blue light. Her heartbeat was slowing. The bond was tearing her apart the farther she went. David ran to her. "Kayla," he shouted. Her eyes opened just enough to see his face. "I told you I wouldn't be bound," she whispered. "You're not," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "But your body, your blood, it's linked to mine now. If you leave for too long, it starts to break you." Tears burned her eyes. "Then I'm a prisoner." "No," David said, "you're not." He gently took her hand. "You came out here because you wanted to choose your own path. That's not weakness, that's strength." Her voice cracked. "Then why are you here?" David looked into her eyes. "I didn't come to bring you back because the law says so," he said. "I came because the thought of you dying out here hurt worse than anything I've ever felt." The bond pulsed between them, soft, warm, alive. Kayla's breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied. Her fingers wrapped around his hand. "You should hate me," she said. "I tried to run from you, I wanted to break the bond." David smiled faintly. "You still can when you're ready, but if you ever come back, let it be because you chose to." Kayla stared at him for a long time. Then she whispered, "What if I don't want to break it anymore?" David didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because at that moment, under twin moons, the bond didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a door. And Kayla had finally found the key. Enemies heard about the bond. Now they want the human dead. Far beyond the forests of Viola, a dark starship hovered above a volcanic moon. Inside its cold halls, General Vacker of the Shadow clans watched the recording on repeat. A human barehanded, catching a sacred violin arrow. And worse, the bond forming with Princess Kayla. He smashed his fist on the table. "This cannot stand." The Shadow clans had waited for years to weaken Viola's power. Kayla was supposed to unite her people with a strong mate, not a human outsider. "Send the assassins," Vacker hissed. "Kill the human before the bond becomes permanent." Meanwhile, back on Viola, David walked beside Kayla through the quiet forest. She still didn't smile much, but she was different now. Softer, calmer, still fierce but open. "You didn't have to come after me," she said quietly. "I know," David replied, "but I wanted to." They sat near a lake. Strange, glowing fish swam beneath the surface. Kayla looked up at the stars. "You don't know what's coming," she said. "What do you mean?" "Others will come, old enemies, rivals. They'll see you as a threat now, not because of who you are, but because of who I'm becoming beside you." David's voice lowered. "Then we face them together." She looked at him. "If you stay near me, you could die." "I'd rather die beside you," he said, "than live safe without you." That night the attack came. Fast, silent, deadly. 3 shadow assassins crept into the palace. Black skin, no heat signatures, poison blades. They found David in the garden, meditating like Kayla taught him. The first assassin aimed for his back. But Kayla struck first. Crack, her spear shattered bone. Thump, the second fell with a knife in the throat. David ducked the third, grabbed a branch, and smashed it against the alien's face. Blood sprayed the flowers. Guards arrived too late. Kayla stood over the bodies, breathing hard. David held a scratch on his arm. They weren't from your planet. Kayla nodded. Shadow clans, they've hated my family for years. Because of the bond. No, she said, because I'm a royal daughter who started to think for herself. She turned to him. Now they want to punish me by killing you. David looked at her seriously. Then we hit back. Kayla blinked. You're human. You're not trained for this kind of war. He stepped closer. Maybe not, but I'm not afraid anymore. For the first time, she touched his face gently. You should be. Then she whispered, because if anything happens to you now, I don't know what it will do to me. Later, the palace was locked down. Soldiers patrolled every hall. And yet inside her chambers, Kayla didn't feel safe. Not because of assassins, but because of what she was starting to feel. Trust. Respect. Something deeper, something terrifying. I was raised to believe humans were weak, she said softly, but now I know that's a lie. David didn't speak, he only took her hand. And this time she didn't pull away. Outside, under the blood moon, General Vacker received the news of his failure. He stared at the screen, watching the human and Kayla walking side by side through the palace. Closer than before. Stronger than before. Vacker clenched his jaw. Then we don't just kill the human. We destroy the bond, we destroy them both. She fought beside him, then something in her changed. The royal city was on high alert. Kayla now wore her full battle armor, dark silver with glowing blue markings, her warrior braid tied tight. David stood beside her, not in armor, but with a small energy shield strapped to his arm. He wasn't trained like her, but he refused to hide. The Shadow clans had declared war, not with armies, but with shadows, poison, and fear. That night they came again. 5 assassins. Smarter, faster, deadlier. This time they didn't go for David. They went for Kayla. The first blade sliced her side before she even saw it. Blood hit the ground. David shouted, Kayla. He jumped forward, shield raised, blocking a strike aimed for her neck. The blast threw him backwards. Kayla screamed, not from pain, but from something deeper. Fear not for herself. For him. She spun, kicked one attacker into the wall, twisted another's wrist until bones cracked, and pulled David behind her. Stay close, she yelled. I'm not leaving you, he shouted back. They fought side by side. Back to back. Her spears his shield, her fire his stubbornness. Together, they moved like they had trained for years. When it ended, the last assassin fell with a gasp. Kayla dropped her weapon, her hands were shaking. David was breathing hard, his cheek bleeding. They looked at each other, not as bonded by law, but as something more. Later in the healing room, Kayla sat silently while medics sealed the wound on her side. David stood nearby, arms crossed. I thought you said the bond didn't mean anything, he said softly. It didn't, she whispered. And now? Kayla didn't speak. Instead, she walked over to him slowly. She looked into his eyes, and did something she'd never done before. She placed her hand on his heart. I was ready to die on the battlefield for my people, she said, but I wasn't ready to feel this. David's voice was low. Feel what? Kayla looked away for a moment, then back at him. Fear for someone else, for you. He smiled gently. Maybe that's not fear, maybe that's love. She stepped back. No, it's not possible. The bond is just tradition, just biology. Maybe, David said, but you didn't throw yourself between me and that blade because of tradition. Kayla opened her mouth to reply, but stopped. Because deep down, she knew he was right. That night, she sat alone in the sacred chamber, where the bond had been declared. She stared at the symbols on the walls, ancient words, old power. And for the first time, she whispered into the empty space. I don't want to run anymore. Footsteps echoed behind her. David. He didn't speak. She didn't look at him, but she said one thing. One sentence. Soft, clear, dangerous. I don't think the bond made me feel this way. I think you did. David sat beside her in silence. Outside, the moonlight fell across the sacred floor. And Kayla, the warrior princess, the arrow shooter, the rule breaker, finally let her guard down. Not because the law said she should, but because her heart finally did. They tried to break the bond, but it nearly killed her. Kayla stood in front of the sacred tribunal. The hall was silent, cold, full of power. The elders sat on stone thrones, their eyes glowing white with ancient knowledge. Behind them, machines hummed. These were the bond breakers, forbidden technology used only in the worst cases. Kayla looked strong on the outside, but inside she was breaking. I request removal, she said firmly, of the bond. David stood beside her. He said nothing, but his fists were clenched. The High Elder leaned forward. Why? Kayla took a deep breath. Because I don't want to feel forced. I want to know if what I feel is real. David nodded slowly. If she wants it gone, I won't stop her. The Elder raised a hand. Then prepare the chamber. Minutes later, Kayla lay on a smooth stone bed. The bond breakers were placed above her chest. Glowing wires touched her temples. David stood behind a glass wall, watching. He felt like his lungs were full of stone. The Elder's voice echoed. This will unbind the soul thread. If the bond is only biological, she will live. If it has grown emotional, she may not survive. David slammed his hand on the glass. Wait, what? But it was too late. The machine began. A deep hum filled the chamber. Kayla's body arched. Her skin turned pale. Her breath caught in her throat. David shouted, "Stop it, it's hurting her." Inside, Kayla felt like her body was being ripped in two. Her memories flashed like lightning. David blocking the blade. David saying, "I want you to be free." David holding her hand by the lake. Her chest burned, her heart screamed. And then, silence. Her body went still. David crashed through the door, ignoring the guards. He ran to her side and dropped to his knees. Kayla, wake up, come on. No response. He held her face, heart pounding. I let you do this because I thought it would help you, but if this takes you from me, I'll never forgive myself. Then, a small breath. Kayla's fingers moved. David froze. Her eyes opened slowly, weak glowing dimly. I'm still here, she whispered. He let out a long breath and hugged her tight. The elders watched in silence. You should not have survived, one of them said. Kayla looked at David and smiled faintly. That's because it wasn't just a bond anymore. David helped her sit up. It was something else. The elder's voice was low. You didn't remove it, you changed it. It's no longer a forced bond, it's something new, something chosen. Kayla whispered, then we're free. David nodded, free to choose each other. Later in the healing chamber, Kayla rested against David's shoulder. You almost died, he said quietly. I know, she replied, but now I know the truth. What truth? She looked at him with tired eyes, but a warm smile. The bond didn't make me love you. Loving you rewrote the bond. And in that moment, they both understood. What began as a law had become something far greater. And far more dangerous. Because now their bond couldn't be controlled. Not by tradition. Not by blood. Not by war. Only by them. She chose him freely, and the galaxy watched. Written in third person, using simple English, with a powerful, emotional, and unique finish that ties everything together, and ends the 7-part HFY saga with a bold, unforgettable moment. 3 days later, the galaxy watched. All major networks streamed the same moment. Across space stations, alien worlds, and human colonies, eyes were locked on the glowing stage on Virla's highest mountain. It was the ceremony of reclamation. Only royal bloodlines could stand on that stone. Only official bonds could be blessed there. But today, the law would be tested. Kayla stood in the center, dressed in a flowing silver robe. Her war tattoos glowed faintly under the moonlight. She looked strong, calm, and proud. David stood across from her. No armor, no weapons, just his truth. The high elders stood at the edge, watching closely. Soldiers, diplomats, even enemies were in the crowd. Some came to witness history. Others came to see if they could stop it. Kayla raised her voice. It rang through the mountains, through the broadcast channels, through hearts. This human caught my sacred arrow. By law, I was bound to him. But I ran, I resisted, I even tried to break the bond. She looked at David, her voice steady. And yet, he never forced me, he never claimed me. He stood beside me, protected me, bled for me. And I realized the bond may have started with law. But it grew with choice. The crowd murmured. Kayla stepped closer. So today, in front of my people, in front of my enemies, and in front of the galaxy, I break the law that forced me, and I choose him freely. Gasp, cheers, shouts. The elders stood frozen. One raised his hand. You defy the code. Kayla faced them. I don't destroy it, I evolve it. You made the bond a prison, I made it a partnership. She turned to David. Do you choose me freely too? David smiled. Every moment since I caught that arrow. He stepped forward and held her hands. As they touched, a pulse of energy lit the sky. Not from tech, not from the law. From the bond. Now changed, now alive. The sacred stone cracked beneath them, but didn't fall. It shifted, glowed, and accepted their new vow. The oldest priest stepped forward, voice shaking. By ancient rule, and by chosen will, let the new bond be witnessed. Across the galaxy, people watched in silence. And something changed. On distant worlds, aliens whispered. A human wasn't just chosen by fate. He was chosen by a queen. In warships and control rooms, leaders watched closely. A political match had become a revolution of love. Back on the mountain, Kayla leaned close to David. You once told me you weren't trying to win me. David smiled, still not trying. So how did you? He gently touched her cheek. I didn't win you, Kayla. You won yourself. In a galaxy ruled by tradition, one human's hand stopped an arrow. But his heart rewrote history. Because sometimes, the greatest bond is not the one you're born into, but the one you choose.